Morning. I'd like to call the Executive Committee meeting Tuesday, October 23rd to order. Can I please get a roll call?
Mr. Tripp, Mr. Washington, Mr. Legess, Mr. Vickery, Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Hess, Mr. Snipes, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Seroy, Ms. Weber, Mr. Zenz, Mr. Lear, Mr. Wheeler. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I have no public comment today. Under no presentations, approval of minutes, August 28th and September 25th, 2018. Motion to approve.
Nope. They're not done.
They're on the agenda.
I know, they always go on the agenda.
We have no minutes to approve today. Okay, let's start again. Roll call, please. No, I'm just kidding. So, under legislative, Mr. Lear, do you have anything to report today? And you are at, sorry.
Legislature's not been in session, so there's no legislature's not been in session, so there's no legislative action, but two board members are going to be going down to the UCCI meeting this weekend.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look for something next month. And it's appreciated. No appointments under information services, Mr. Duval. Hey. Oh, I see.
Just keep it brief here. I'd like to keep you abreast of anything new that we do on networking wise. And you've had a few questions from the board members over time about security practices with the voting systems and the county clerk. As I've always assured you, it's very secure and we take extra precautions. But to that end, working with the chairman and working directly with Dan and the county clerk, we did a major upgrade for the county clerk's office over the last few weeks. We've been planning it over probably last year and a half, mainly because of people's questions. We just wanted to go that next step. And the next step is we isolated the county clerk's network from everybody else. They can come back over here to get those things they need to, but no one can access their network. There are no remote ways into their network. And for their wireless system that they, as you know, they use their iPads to do voting or to set up the voting. We created a network specifically for them. So we added that one more layer of security for them. It's not required by law, but so we're doing more than has been requested. So it's just those additional layers that to the point of your questions and everybody's questions. So just letting you know that we added that out there.
Anything else from Mr. Duval? Thank you for being generally non-specific on our security measures. No, it's good to know.
Your email.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely don't want to have our security protocols out there exactly what we're doing. Like their pumps at our gas station, right? Remember that one? Yeah. Under schools, we have our quarterly report from the regional superintendent. A motion to put that on file. Mr. Vickery, second. Mr. Lear, any questions on that? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Under VAC, Mr. Torres.
Okay, you should have a copy of my September report. Overall, we were seeing a little bit of a spike in the homeless population for veterans over the last couple of months. That seems to have slowed down a little bit. I am working closely with the Continuum of Care to make sure that any veterans that are identified as homeless are taken care of. Catholic Charities, Diocese of Joliet's Supportive Services for Veteran Families program has been great with helping us respond to the needs of homeless Kankakee County veterans. So other than that, things are going well with the VAC. We have another bus driver, so we are providing bus service up to Hines 5 days a week between our two drivers. So that's about it.
Any questions? Mr. Torres?
Coming up
Oh, yes.
on November 1st.
Yes. So and that was the big thing I meant to talk about. So on November 1st at 2:30, we are going to have a graduation of 3 veterans from our Veterans Treatment Court. These are veterans that have been in the program for over a year. It's another problem-solving court, just like drug court. And we're actually adding something to it with the Public Defender's Office and the State's Attorney's Office. We are going to be pushing for immediate expungements of the charges against our graduates, so those things will not be hanging over their heads anymore. Again, everyone is invited. 2:30, courtroom 300. So, and it's also our 5th anniversary of us having a treatment court in the 21st Circuit. Yes, sir.
You have 3 graduates. It says 2 here, but you got another one.
Yes, it updated. We have one client that's also involved in another veterans treatment court, and he was finally approved for graduation from them, so he's also graduating out of our program.
Oh,
So that'll be on my October report.
all right.
Ms.
Yes,
Weber?
ma'am.
Thank you. I like reading about the donation of beds for homeless. I wondered the plan there. How does a homeless person have a bed?
Well, so as soon as we get them housed, we can let them have a bed, so the very first night they're in their apartment, they don't have to sleep on the floor. When I was working at Catholic Charities before, unfortunately, that was the circumstance. But right now, we have the ability that that's not going to happen.
How many beds are involved in this donation?
I think it was about 40.
Really? Good job.
And we're storing them at a local area business, so it's not only was it a donation to help our Kankakee County residents, but it also will help a local business.
Huh.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day, folks.
I knew there's a reason we kept you here. I need a motion to accept the report from the VAC. Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Snipes, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna go ahead and skip the county, oh, just kidding. Just kidding. County Administrator's report. Gotcha.
Every day. Good morning. Everyone have the head count report, the staffing report for the month. It was actually a pretty quiet month in terms of hiring. You can see we added 6 positions and -4, and we're at 526 total staff. As a reference point, we were at 529 last December. So we remain flat, essentially. So you might see, like this month, administration staff is up 1. Next month, when Diane bids us farewell, it'll be back down to 3. So there's some things that end up being a little timing wise, but no new positions added. It's all just replacements. The last 30 days, I spent a good deal of time on our liability, auto, inland marine renewal. There was about a 41-page survey of all of our equipment at the county, all our vehicles. A lot of it appears, was duplicative from prior year that somehow didn't get retained at our insurance agent, so gave them a little scolding about that. So hopefully we retain that information and won't be so difficult next year. So other than that, ongoing HR benefits issue, working on Diane's replacement, and then the copier RFP. So that kind of did that. And then the next really 30 to 60 days is going to be tied up with open enrollment as we look to that. So that open enrollment will take place December 1st through probably around the 25th, with the new benefit plan year starting January 1st. Questions? Oh,
Well, I did want to just add one thing before questions, that we have been meeting with the auditor on a regular basis, working through, you know, the pile of issues that we have. But one thing we did kind of realize is that since we didn't have an accounting of all the equipment in one location, that's actually one of the responsibilities of the auditor's office, is to do that continual audit, excuse me. And so we're going to make that list available too, and then he is going to keep that in his office, because who better to see if we have a new piece of equipment than where the claims go through. So it seems like by working together and talking to each other, we figured out how to make this all better. So that it's amazing what happens when we work together, and so it should become more efficient. Who was that? Mr. Olthoff? Is it okay? All right. All right. Mr. Olthoff.
Yes. Did I understand that correctly, that we had more inventory than we really had, and that we were paying insurance on it?
No, there was the list that we provided last year to the insurance company was no longer, they couldn't put their finger on where it was. They sent us a whole new list to fill out. And we had like how many days, or excuse me, you had how many days to do that?
it was about 3 weeks.
It was about 3 weeks, but that was a lot of work.
It was a lot of
You were
work.
talking VIN numbers. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Honestly, I'll say that, you know, I received a lot of help from the finance and the highway department. I mean, Bob LaLuna in highway was all over that by, you know, serial number. Some of the amounts on our coverage wasn't the original acquisition price, so that's an issue if you have a claim. Luckily, we didn't have any claims, so we got all of that cleaned up. So looks good heading into next year.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to go back through this again. And I think the system we have will work. Yes, Ms.
I
Miller.
just appreciate receiving the tally of the office copy machines, and I know that was a lot of looking at, but it was well presented to us so we could understand which was best.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Mr. Vickery?
I wanted to add my accolade for that job too. I had to do that with health insurance one time, and it's yeah. So
It's a bear.
yeah. So
Thank you.
anyway, and so now we have an inventory of everything we own. Wonderful.
Yeah.
As far as we know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's as always is the case.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just as we make a good effort to maintain it, it should be okay as we go forward.
Yeah.
So, anything else? Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, under administrative issues, the reappointment of Stephen Lear to ICANN Joint Education Committee. Reappointment of Alice Tinker Parker to the same, and of R. Shane Ritter to the same. Reappointment of David Romine to the Clausen Park Drainage District, and reappointment of Larry Larriger? Luigi to the Union Number 2 Drainage District. Thank you. Can I get a motion to combine and approve these? Mr. Seroy, second. Mr. Byrne. Any questions for Mr. Lear? No? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Under openings, I have one opening on the Gar Creek Drainage District, two on the Mantino Number 3 Drainage District, one on the Mantino Number 9 District, one on McGilvery Drainage District, one on Minnie Creek Drainage, one on the Moments and Yellowhead Drainage, two openings on the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District, two openings on the Essex Township Fire Protection District, and one opening on the Ethics Commission. Which one was it that added two people? Was it was Bourbonnais. Bourbonnais actually had a resolution, and it's in the packet. You'll see that they expanded their fire protection district, so it's not the two that are already there. They wanted two more. So so those openings are there. Nothing under other business or information, but Health Department, John Beavis.
Good morning. I've got two items. The first one is really quick. It's just a reminder for an invitation that on November 15th, the Health Department, along with Riverside, the coroner's office, the task force that works with the opioid grant that we have, is going to be sponsoring another one of our opioid forums. It's so November 15th at 6 o'clock. It's at the Bradley Bourbonnais Community High School auditorium. So there's going to be plenty of seats, and it's a open forum and a panel discussion. So we're going to have a number of speakers there to Mr. Gessner and law enforcement, some treatment facilities, to kind of give an update then where we're at currently with the opioid epidemic here in Kankakee County as of today's date compared to last year, where we were at with those forums at that time. So encourage you to try to attend. I know some of you have been to some of those in the past, and we're hoping to have a really good turnout for this one. The second item, in your packets, I believe you should have our food code, the food ordinance for the Kankakee County Health Department. We are proposing changes that are required of us in order to accomplish the manner in which we do the inspections. When the food inspectors for the health department go out and conduct the inspections in the county, we follow the Illinois Department of Public Health, basically the Bible we call it, but the food code. In 2016, Illinois adopted the FDA food code, which was to then, when they adopted it, they didn't adopt it immediately, but they adopted it with the intent that then there was going to have to be work done throughout the state in regards to all the health department's ordinances and changes, and then preparing and getting ready for the type of inspections that would then be taking place within the facilities. And so they gave a January 1st, 2019, which is coming up, as the start date for when all of Illinois would then need to be following these new guidelines. In essence, what happens is traditionally over all the years since 1987, when the food ordinance was first passed in Kankakee County, all the inspections, when I was an inspector, what our inspectors are doing today, it was a scoring basis. So basically you had 100 points when we walked in the door, and as we found violations, we're chipping away at those violations. So this violation's worth this many points, this violation's worth that many points. And then at the end of the inspection, you get a score. And that score then dictates, some of those violations would dictate whether it was a major violation, meant that we needed to come back for a reinspection, or if you were able to correct it on site. And then minor violations, such as like cleaning, repairs, things like that, we could wait and come back on the next inspection. The new FDA food code is more of a risk-based inspection, and it takes away the scoring process. So now it's just going to be, we're going to be looking for the risk factors. It's a lot of this, it's basically the same violations, but it takes away that scoring aspect. So what we had to do here in Kankakee County, and what all health departments throughout Illinois are having to do, is go through the same process. As we had to review then our ordinance and take out the language and change the language to accommodate the new risk-based inspection, and then eliminate the language that was saying that we were scoring. So we no longer have 4- and 5-point violations starting on January 1st, and we will now do these risk-based inspections. So it's making the language match. And so that's all we did here. So I believe, if my understanding is correct, you have a copy that shows the stricken language and then the added language. And then we worked with Graham with the state's attorney's office. He did a great job. And then he's provided you what would be the clean copy. If you approve this would be the new version that we would ultimately present to the full board, and then hopefully the MuniCode people in getting that then put into the code book for January 1. It allows you to then just see that we added basically the two biggest components. We're adding some new definitions that were coming out of the FDA food code then in relation to the new language, because for example, in the old days, we called it a major violations and minor violations, and they call them priority items, priority foundation items, and core items. It's the same thing, only different in essence. So it's just a different term, but we don't score now. You won't get points off for that. So it's going to be an adjustment both for the way that the facilities are inspected, how we communicate with them. It's going to be more of an interview process with the managers and making sure that they're educated, that their staff are educated, that they understand what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to maybe over the years in health departments, not necessarily here, but the argument was there wasn't consistency throughout the state. And this is hopefully going to bring consistency throughout the state, that we're focusing on the risk factors and not necessarily just looking for every little 1 and 2 point violation that we could get on a facility and give them a low score if that was an issue. So I think at that point, and so this is required. And then lastly, I just want to point out, in case somebody were to ask, none of this involves us raising any fees for the licenses at this point. This was strictly to make the language. We had to get rid of our scoring language because it would no longer apply, and we needed to insert the language that would apply for the risk-based inspection section. So we are and at this point, then we're not asking for any kind of a fee for the licenses. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue for anyone to worry about. So I will open it up to any questions at this point.
Questions? Mr. Zenz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, do you have any kind of change management plan in place for being able to, waterfall this communication down to businesses and things like that, so they know what to expect coming forward?
During the past year and a half, since this was passed in 2016, as the inspectors have been going out to the facilities, they have been making the managers and the people in charge of those facilities aware of the changes that are coming down the pike. We intend to also then, when we send out our license renewals, send out a reminder with them that starting January 1, then this will now finally go into effect. So they've been put on the clock that it's coming, and our health department, including all the health departments throughout the state, have been preparing for it, and then we all start on January 1. Our inspectors, it'll be a new type of inspection for them. So we figure that the process is going to be a little slow going at first, and so we're going to be patient with our staff as they get used to this style, and then we're going to be very patient with the facilities and work with them, as opposed to just going in gangbusters and saying, here we are, we're going to do this, and because this is new for them and it's new for us, and it's going to. We figure it's going to, I think we've talked to some health departments who already do it, and it's taking about 20%, 30% more sometimes to do an inspection compared to the traditional one if they did one today.
Thank you.
Other
Yes, sir.
questions? Mr. Snipes first, and Ms. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the scoring that they are accustomed to, like the 75%, 80%, 90%, whatever it is that they do, is going to be eradicated. What determination will they have as to a not a scoring process, but at least a level of like I passed, I failed, etc. And would this be more stringent than passed, or would you consider more stringent or more, I guess, store-friendly type or management-friendly type of evaluation?
That's a great question. Yes, it is. It is.
No. Strike it, comment.
One of the things that Illinois did not do when they adopted the food code was they did not adapt Chapter 8 of the FDA food code, which involved the enforcement aspect. That part they're leaving up to the individual counties to come up with their own way of determining then, as you put it, either the pass-fail what determines a reinspection in some places. So under the old form, a failing score would have been 74 and below. And then so we'd say your facility has flunked and we're going to come back in 48 hours. Or if it was low enough, we might say you're an imminent health hazard and we closed you and then required you to make your changes before we opened you back up. So that is eliminated. However, within the language here under the violations, the certain violations have requirements for a correction, some within 24 hours, some within 48 hours, and then some by the next routine inspection. We'll have to go through the process. So that allows us either the opportunity of allowing the facility to be able to correct it on site, which we do today. It will allow for, if it's something where they're going to have to order a part to repair or hire a repairman to come in, which might take a day or so to do, then we can come back and reinspect that issue. Or we still have the opportunity to issue a ticket and go through the state's attorney's office in regards to a facility, or we can have compliance conferences and meet with the management of the staff to just say, look, you've got an issue here. We need to get this fixed. And then as you go back another time, if the same issues are there, we could meet with them and say, okay, look, we've got a reoccurring problem and we'd like you to fix this, or we're going to seek to suspend your license, revoke your license, in which it costs more money than for them to come back. A number of health departments are modeling this method right now, and then they may consider, and we're considering, but we're not at that point yet, creating an internal policy in regard to what exactly constitutes needing to suspend or come up with what would be the new 74, so to speak, because we don't have a score anymore. But this allows us the opportunity to cite violations at a specific facility, give them timeframes in which to correct it, and then there's mechanisms in place for a reinspection to get that done. We also already have in place and have had in place within the fee schedule a reinspection fee. So if we inspect your facility, for example, and we need to come back because of a violation, that first time is on us. That's part of your license fee that you pay. But if you end up being an individual or a facility that is just not getting it, refuses to correct it, when we go back the third time or the fourth time, we can start charging you extra money. You refuse to pay that, then when we come time to send out your new license, we then just say, well, you don't get your new license because you owe us this much money too, and you never made those corrections. And then it's going to force you to have to do it at that point.
I'm sorry, Mr. Washington.
So it depends on the degree of belligerence on behalf of the facility.
Which part?
Whether you shut them down, whether you charge them or not, the ongoing thing.
No, I wouldn't say it depends on how, I guess maybe I'm misinterpreting that it's not how well you treat me or not. It's
No. I mean, the number of times that you have to go back to them, the number of times that you have to cudgel them in order to.
Well,
to
if I'm coming back to your facility, for example, for a small hole in the wall that you just aren't fixing, that could be an entryway for insects or rodents, but I've never seen insects or rodents, that would probably be something minor. But if I have to keep coming back because your refrigerator is not keeping temperature and the hamburger's always at 60 degrees, that's a what could be considered an imminent health hazard and could force okay, so yes, then if that's what you're meaning, then yes, I agree with you.
Any other questions, Mr. Vickery?
This is just done to protect the consumer. I understand that there's concern about the businesses, but the consumer is the ultimate person who benefits from good health department practices.
Yes. It also, within the confines of, it sort of takes away the, not that it's been alleged here, but it takes away, if I'm just a health department inspector who's got it out for you, I could come in and nitpick you to death. I guess, and just give you a low score. The risk-based inspection is basically focusing more so on the risk factors associated with what you're doing. So some facilities have more risks than others. So a 7-Eleven, for example, has very minimal risk because it's more of a retail operation, prepackaged foods. They don't make anything on site. Whereas if you go to an Olive Garden or Chili's or a bigger restaurant where they're making food, day to day and having leftovers and reheating and stuff, then there's a lot more risk factors involved there that we need to be focusing on. So it kind of gives us the ability to then focus more on that. And if you've spilled some dust and flour on the floor because of you're preparing all that food for the day, we're not necessarily writing that down today as a violation because we understand that that's the normal operational aspect versus I look under the table and I see potatoes that are sprouted and growing more potatoes because you haven't cleaned them up for so long and haven't got underneath there to clean that up. So today's dirt versus yesterday's dirt. But yes, it is more risk-based and associated and providing the education then to the facilities as to what they need to be doing and how they do it.
Mr. Snipes?
Comment. The state has given the county a little bit more subjectivity into the process, but you're not going to be as demanding as Gabrielle Union was when they saw on the TV of being the health inspector.
I don't know. I don't.
Oh, you haven't seen
I don't know that
Gabrielle?
analogy.
Right. That means she went in and just fine-tuned, and she was punctilious in the process. Excuse me, where she just nitpicked everything.
Right. There's more of a questionnaire that we start with. So when the inspector starts at the facility, they'll work with the manager. They kind of go through a number of questions. If they don't answer some of those questions a specific way, it takes us down a different path in regards to some of the educational aspects that we'll need to do or have them do to show us that they're doing it and correcting it, and then lead us to maybe what it is then that we're looking for in the facility during that inspection. Something that we're not maybe necessarily doing now. Now we come in and we're looking at, your temperatures, your floors, walls, and ceilings, is your dumpster lid closed, and that kind of thing. Right. Which are all still important, but sometimes people feel that we're missing the true essence of what's going on with the food preparation.
I have one, the bed and breakfast establishment. It made me think, what's the regulation on VRBO and Airbnb and people that are renting out their house that has like no more than 5 bedrooms, and they have food in the fridge and people are coming in and.
Can you answer that? I've got Keith Winowski, who's the director. The limit's 5, is it not? 5 bedrooms?
Yeah, I was saying not going over the 5. People rent their home out and it has food in the fridge and they have stoves and.
This is Keith Winowski, who's the Director of Environmental Health with the Health Department.
You're on.
Okay. The bed and breakfast, the reason the bed and breakfast definition is in here is the bed and breakfast is exempt. The bed and breakfast is not a food service establishment. The bed and breakfast has their own set of rules. So they can only serve breakfast. They can't serve lunch and dinner. And they can't have more than 5 guest rooms. So then they're in their own little category. But we still have the authority to license them through the Bed and Breakfast Act.
Okay. And so it doesn't cover the owner operated where they rent their house out and things like that.
No.
I know that some of these owner operators, when you rent the condo or the apartment, you'll show up there and they may have like a plate full of cupcakes, let's just say, sitting on the table that they may have baked themselves.
Yes. If you read our new definition of a food service establishment, there are exemptions like small daycares.
Okay.
Like DCFS allows you to have less than 4 kids or whatever, and you can feed them.
Okay. So that covers owner operated.
They're exempt from the food from
that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. They just can't charge them for the cupcakes. Yeah. See what I did there?
They may do it with the fee of staying all night.
It's included.
It's
right?
included.
It's a gift at that point. It's a gift. All right, Ms. Weber, sorry about that. I forgot
Thank
to come
you,
back to
Keith.
you.
Thank you. I see this is Article 3. Is there must be other articles and they won't be updated or?
Some of the other articles with the, I believe that's like the health nuisance.
Oh.
Those are different ordinances that the health department enforces. The Article 3 is the one that involves the food ordinance.
Thank you.
What we would traditionally call the food ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Snipes?
One
yes.
quick last question. How many bed and breakfasts do we have, and are they inspected on a regular basis? If you can answer that question.
I'm aware of maybe one in the county and currently no. I believe that they're under the 5 bedrooms, so we've not.
Sounds good.
So in essence, this is a requirement that the health departments and all health departments need to do. So we've just changed the language to be, it's adjusted to meet that the ability on January 1 to conduct the inspections in the manner that the new FDA language calls for. And we're not raising fees.
Yes, Mr. Seroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beavis, do you believe, in your personal opinion, do you think these changes are going to increase your inspectors' time, or would these decrease your inspectors' time as far as re-inspections, or are you going to be able to solve problems on that very day, or is when you did the scoring, you always had to go back and rescore? So are these changes going to help you? Or are they going to hinder you as far as manpower?
In talking with other health departments who've already started this process, either there are a couple in Illinois, I think, and then in other states. Initially, the beginning will be a little bit slower. If you get a new computer, for example, and you've got to learn some of the nuances of that, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it shouldn't be long before you're up and going. So we anticipate, yes, that initially it's going to take more time to do each of the type of inspections that we do. We have 3 categories: high, medium, and low, or category 1, 2, and 3. So 1 are the biggest facilities, 2 are your fast food McDonald's size restaurants, and then 1 are your retail 7-Elevens, your gas station marts, and things like that. So obviously the bigger facilities will take a lot more time because there's a lot more to go through, a lot more to interview and ask about the processes and the food that they receive and how it goes through the facility. The smaller facilities, not so much. After that, it's hard to say. We started this year a time study to kind of give us an idea of how long it was taking us to do the inspections for the high, mediums, and lows currently. And then we're going to start that process again in January for the first quarter and record how much time it's taking to do the inspections at that point, so we can see a comparison. Really, it might take 2 years for us to kind of get through the first year, and then the second year of, okay, we know what bugs we need to work out, or things just get easier as they understand more what we're doing, what we're asking, what they need to do. We do have a process today, if someone's getting inspected today, that if you had a major violation, for example, if it's correctable on site, we document the fact that you got those points docked off your score, but we give you a first score and a second score. So here's your original score, and then we leave with this score. And if that allows us to not have to come back in 2 weeks, this would have forced us to had to come back. Right. But one of the complaints years ago was that we weren't accounting for facilities who fixed stuff during the inspection, and we're like, well, you're writing it down, but I fixed it. Mm-hmm. And so we created that fixed score, so to speak. This inspection will kind of allow for that too. We'll be able to document that they've corrected something on site. If it's one of those priority foundation ones, it'll be accounted for that, and it may eliminate us needing to do another inspection.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Vickery?
Is this in the form of an ordinance, or is it just?
This is an ordinance, yes.
Okay.
So if you'd like to make a motion,
and a second?
yes, sir. Yes, please.
I'll make the motion.
And a second for Mr. Legess. Is there any other follow-ups? Nope. Any other questions? It's a simple voice vote. Ugh. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your help in getting this timeline. So hopefully we'll, one more.
One more question.
Columbo.
I thought we elucidated that okay. didn't we?
All right, moving on. Under old business, we have the repeal of Resolution 2014-18-122. First, get a motion on the floor. Mr. Vickery, second, Mr. Legess. This is basically at the recommendation of the state's attorney's office. We have to kind of clean up and make sure that we're in correlation with the Affordable Care Act and other government regulations. Pretty cut and dry kind of housekeeping type stuff, but we just want to make sure we're in line with everything. There's no questions. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. All right. Mr. Legess, do you have anything to add today?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Legess has a motion that we adjourn. A second will go to Mr. Olthoff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign. And please make sure you sign all of your,
Mike, what happened?
please make sure you sign everything. Thanks so much.